What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we have a very simple topic, just something I've seen talked about a lot amongst the fandom. I just really wanted to acknowledge this because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what exactly Akira Toriyama is trying to portray in terms of modern Dragon Ball. A lot of people jump to conclusions about the Saiyans and what exactly Akira Toriyama wants in terms of his intentions for the story. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. And the topic for today's video is whether or not, within the context of Dragon Ball Super, Goku would still in fact destroy planet Earth had he not hit his head, or had he not gained the nature he had from Grandpa Gohan and been raised by him. So the most important evidence that we have to suggest that Goku would still in fact destroy the Earth is this right here from Akira Toriyama himself, where he's asked, do all Saiyans become combatants? In which he says, a baby's battle power is measured as soon as they are born. If their numbers pass a certain standard, then they are considered upper-level warriors and immediately raised as combatant candidates. On the other hand, those whose numbers remain low, even after a certain amount of time, are regarded as low-level warriors and become either engineers or are sent off a planet somewhere as infiltration babies, or as they are later called in Dragon Ball Minus, rocket children. So if they grow strong enough to conquer that planet, then they can return to their home world as a combatant. However, infiltration babies do not have a high survival rate. Raditz was an upper-level warrior and assigned to the same group as Nappa as a proper combatant. Before long, Vegeta was also added to that group too. Now, this suggests and implies quite a few things. Toriyama is implying here that Saiyans don't destroy the planet they are sent to due to being consciously aware of that being their goal. They just do it as a side effect of being a Saiyan. And it also implies, as stated here, that a low-level rocket child has a very low survival rate, and that confirms that Raditz, again, was a high-level combatant from the start in comparison to his brother Goku. Now, there are quite a few other things to consider when trying to hash this whole thing out in terms of what Toriyama is specifically trying to say about the Saiyans. Now, one thing I want to acknowledge here, Kanal Budokai on Twitter asks, if the Saiyans don't remember their missions, doesn't that contradict the original manga in which Raditz says that Goku should remember, and the story tells us that he just doesn't remember because he hit his head? Now, I'm going to acknowledge this because that is not necessarily the case. Essentially, the idea is that it's not necessarily Goku's lack of memories that caused him to not destroy planet Earth. It was the fact that he hit his head, lost his memories, lost his nature, and as a result lost the quote-unquote pride of the Saiyans and what drove them to be conquerors, etc., naturally. The reason that Raditz brings up Goku's pride as a Saiyan, specifically in reference to his memories, is because by losing his memories, he lost his pride as a Saiyan. So essentially the idea is that Saiyans are just naturally by nature prideful, and as a result, they naturally take over things around them, destroy things around them. They feel very justified in their actions in terms of doing what they need to do in order to survive due to the pride that they have in themselves naturally as a species. So by Goku losing his... Because think about it. Goku is not going to lose the pride of the Saiyans through losing his memories if he never grew up to have the pride of the Saiyans. Just think about it for a few seconds, okay? That implies that this sort of pride that Raditz is talking about is naturally ingrained into their nature, which actually makes sense. That makes much more sense than assuming that Goku has some sort of programming that he naturally has, like from a technological standpoint, where they have like these orders that are like ingrained into their brains. That makes way less sense than just knowing that the Saiyans by nature have what Raditz is referring to here as Saiyan Pride, which causes them to naturally behave in a way necessary in order to conquer and destroy, and essentially, by nature, they are a species that exists through their natural susceptibility to just destroying and conquering and being a destructive force of nature. Like I said, they are survival of the fittest manifested into an actual being. They are essentially, if you took the concept of survival of the fittest and you had it incarnated into a species, that species would be Saiyans, which is why Goku would naturally be a destructive force of nature had he not been affected by Grandpa Gohan. Now, at one point, Koyama and Toriyama actually sat down together during an interview, and Koyama actually outwardly asked Akira Toriyama if Goku would still destroy the Earth, to which he blatantly told him that yes, he would. Despite the fact the concept is something that he had completely thought of after the fact, he still thought that Goku would in fact destroy the Earth, which is very important. Now, one thing I think we should take into consideration when it comes to modern interpretations of Dragon Ball is the director of Dragon Ball Super Broly, Nagamine. And he says in his own words, and I'm just going to quote him here, and we'll just kind of dissect what he has to say and just sort of see how it complements the message that I'm trying to portray here. So Nagamine says, I think this movie starts after they've lost their original pride as a warrior race. During the flashback scene, Bardock is really the only pure warrior race Saiyan. The others have all been tamed by Frieza's army. Now, it's really important to consider how Bardock behaved in the Granola Saga when thinking about what Nagamine is saying here. Because remember, Bardock threw himself in these survival situations and thought of nothing but survival, and as a result evolved and exercised the pride of his race, the true pride of his race, to grow and evolve as a species, which overall helped them survive over time. So that's very important to remember when you're thinking about the true pride of the Saiyan race. So the others have all been tamed by Frieza's army, according to Nagamine. Despite being from a warrior race, even King Vegeta doesn't challenge Frieza to a fight or anything like that. Instead, he just bows and scrapes before Frieza and uses underhanded tactics against his own subordinates like Broly and Paragus, rather than a warrior race's pride per se. I think Bardock maintains something of their pure nature now. Broly, Goku, and Vegeta left Planet Vegeta as children, so they've gone on living with that pure Saiyan aspect still intact. Vegeta lived on Planet Vegeta from his earliest memories, so he has a princely pride that interferes a bit, but I consider Goku and Broly to be truly pure Saiyans and have depicted them as such. In the original manga, Goku may call himself a Saiyan raised on Earth, but I think by meeting and battling the truly pure Saiyan Broly, he feels a renewed sense of Saiyan pride. For me, a pure Saiyan is a beautiful thing, or perhaps I should say it's invigorating. I think Broly is truly beautiful, and that's why I think this movie might tell the story of the Saiyan's rebirth. Now, one thing I really want you to take in consideration there that Nagamine said is that Vegeta still had his princely pride that was in his way a bit. And that is something they actually just completely fixed for the most part in reference to his own species, whenever he essentially came to the conclusion at the end of the Granola arc that he should have pride in his species as a whole rather than himself, which is the mistake that King Vegeta made whenever he sent Broly off, who was essentially the hope of his species. Had Broly not been sent off, he was essentially the hope of Planet Vegeta and what could have saved them from Frieza, but he chose to send them off due to the fact that he had a superiority complex. And so, you know, that's something really cool to consider here, that their pride should be in the survival of their race and of their species as a whole rather than just themselves, because that attitude is counterproductive to what they're trying to achieve, which is allowing their species to grow and conquer and, you know, dominate the universe. You can't do that if you're more worried about your own survival than your species' survival. And that's something really cool that Vegeta can pass on to Broly in modern Dragon Ball. But something else really important to consider here is that he says that this might be the story of the Saiyan's rebirth. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute, and I want you to just hold that thought in your mind. So, in a sense, when Nagamine talks about the rebirth of the Saiyans, when we see Bardock still killing other species to ensure his own and the rest of his comrades and his species as a whole survival, that is what is being considered the sin here. That is what is being considered the impurity here, right? It's the fact that they just randomly go around killing for monetary gain and to ensure their survival as a species. That is what's being framed as the incorrect thing to do in this case. And that is the aspect of Bardock's character that is purified through Goku. When Goku goes to practice martial arts, Gine's influence caused Bardock to start to become more like Goku would on Earth, right? Goku is the ultimate product of that influence, but without the nature he gained from Grandpa Gohan, he would have naturally tried to dominate his environment from a Darwinian standpoint like the Saiyans did to Planet Vegeta many, many, many years ago. Now keep in mind that Toriyama was in charge of depicting the events that happened on Planet Vegeta whenever they took over Planet Vegeta all those years ago. And so what you're seeing them do in that moment is what Goku would have done had he not been influenced by Grandpa Gohan. And the reason Nagamine is talking about this being the Saiyan's rebirth is because due to him being raised specifically by Grandpa Gohan, a martial arts expert, who is specifically all about taming the ego and taming your survival instincts and using them for something productive, and that is martial arts, because of specifically who he was raised by, he used that part of himself for productive reasons, which caused him to become strong enough to survive and persevere through all of these situations that he would deal with as a result of dealing with the trials that the Dragon Ball universe naturally would throw his way. And not only did he survive and thrive as an individual, he has a pure heart, and as a result would also survive the trials of the Dragon Balls themselves. Because if you remember, Kami actually said himself that he was just going to allow the Earth to suffer the consequences of their actions had he not discovered Goku, the pure-hearted Saiyan who had been raised by Grandpa Gohan. He would have just allowed the Earth to be doomed. So Goku becoming who he became as a result of Grandpa Gohan not only prevented the Earth's doom in that sense, it's prevented it countless times afterwards and also ensured Goku's own survival. So the whole point is that Grandpa Gohan prevented Goku from doing what the Saiyans did to Planet Vegeta, and that is what doomed them. Something really cool I want you to know is if you ever go back and you watch these films, just go back and watch Dragon Ball Super Broly, and you will notice that the scene where Frieza is actually taking out Bardock is eerily similar to the scene where Goku is being threatened by Beerus to have the Earth destroyed. They have the same music. Everything is eerily similar. And there's a reason for that. And that is because Goku, due to his attitude as a individual and as a human being, ended up ensuring the survival of planet Earth due to his antics and who he was. He impressed Beerus, which caused Beerus to decide not to destroy planet Earth because of Goku's personality and who he is by nature, and he became that as a result of being influenced by Grandpa Gohan and being raised on Earth. Opposite to that, Bardock is raised on planet Vegeta, a planet where all they think about is their own survival, their own selfish needs, constantly. They don't have martial arts to help them conquer their nature, and as a result, the scene with Frieza and Bardock is essentially communicating to you the consequences of who Bardock was and who the Saiyan race was as a whole prior to Goku being the rebirth of the Saiyans, using martial arts to tame his nature. So had Goku not been raised in the specific scenario he had been raised in, not only would he have destroyed the Earth, he also would have likely doomed himself and the rest of the Saiyan race due to the fact that instead of changing their ways and being an example of the Saiyan's rebirth, he's essentially continuing to perpetuate the same issues that they caused in the past, exactly like Raditz, Vegeta, and Nappa, etc. So, yes, the entire narrative demands that Goku by nature, and this is something that Toriyama is very blatantly trying to communicate to us, that he would still in fact destroy the Earth due to his pride as a Saiyan and his pride in who he is and his species. So, much like how Granola, which he's one of my favorite examples, was dominated by his memories and dominated by the past and wanted to avenge his species, Goku would have naturally felt a pride in his species similar to that, which is why Granola is a character who is specifically crafted to sort of be Goku had he never lost his memories in a sense. And there are tons of other characters who all of their intended purpose is to communicate to you that Goku would still had in fact been a destructive force of nature who destroyed the planet Earth, despite the fact that he was not specifically sent there to destroy it like people just assumed in the original Dragon Ball Z era. So would Goku have destroyed Earth in modern Dragon Ball? Most definitely. There are too many narrative implications. There are too many events that suggest, not only through all of these events directed by Toriyama and everyone else, not only in these interviews, there are just there are so many different things, even in modern Dragon Ball, to suggest that Goku would still in fact destroy the Earth, despite the fact that he was not sent there specifically to destroy it. The idea that he was sent there to survive could have just as easily backfired had he not been through the specific scenario that he had, which just so happened to be the best possible scenario that would cause him to be prepared to survive the world of Dragon Ball. So essentially, Goku being raised by Grandpa Gohan was the best possible thing that could have happened to him to make him a destructive force of nature, but for good. And honestly, I think this entire narrative of Goku being the rebirth of the Saiyans through being raised by Grandpa Gohan, and this evolution that the species is going through as a result of being introduced to the planet Earth, has ridiculously cool narrative weight. And I think that the fact that people try to discount it and try to act like it's lesser than some of the interpretations that they've come up with in terms of what Dragon Ball is all about is disingenuous, because there is much, much more to this series than Goku specifically being sent to Earth for the purpose of destroying it, to suggest that that is the all-encompassing narrative that perpetuates the entire story and dictates whether or not it has any merit or any value is just silly to me. So I hope that this video can give you an appreciation for modern Dragon Ball. I know a lot of people like to suggest that the modern interpretation is not near as good as the old interpretation, and I heavily disagree. And I just think that the Dragon Ball series as a whole is so rich in terms of narrative weight that there are tons of things they can do, and it will continue to maintain its integrity in terms of just how amazing the story is, in terms of its intricacies, and just how cool it is from a storytelling standpoint. So anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.